Is it fine? Okay. So, Honorable Chief Guest, Engineer Sangeeta Goyal, faculty colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and all my dear students. First of all, I'd like to extend my grateful thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor, Registrar, and all deans who have given me this opportunity to organize this webinar. As you know, this 2nd December is celebrating as a National Pollution Control Day in India to bring the attention the danger of polluted water, land and air. So on this special day, this is my proud privilege to welcome Engineer Sangeeta Goyal, who has kindly agreed in a very short notice to deliver a webinar in our to our students and faculty members and all the attendees on a very important topic on this special day: air pollution, fundamental sources, risk and management. It is my honor to welcome you all on behalf of Medicaps University along with the head of the Department of Civil Engineering. Our objective in organizing this webinar is to develop the students into capable civil engineering graduates by imparting appropriate high quality education in civil engineering branch so that our student could be readily adopted for service sectors which will be faced by ongoing challenges of the country. So today we have gathered here to gain a knowledge from one of our most eminent personality from one of the research institute, one of the most prominent research institute, that is NEERI Nagpur. That is the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute, Nagpur. So we have amongst us a very renowned personality who is highly qualified and possess vast experience and knowledge in the field of air pollution. So now I'll read the small introduction of this Engineer Sangeeta Goyal ma'am. Sangeeta Gadge Goyal has done her Masters in Environmental Engineering from Vishweshwarya National Institute of Technology, Nagpur. She has 15 years of research experience in the field of environmental engineering and work on various consultancy and R&D projects. Earlier, she worked at CSMCRI, that means Central Salt Marine Chemical Research Institute, Bhavnagar, and then transferred to CSRI NEERI Nagpur. She worked at CSMCRI, involved air quality monitoring, indoor air quality assessment, marine and freshwater quality monitoring, remote sensing, data processing techniques, effects of increased CO2 concentration on growth and lipid concentration, then marine microalgae to be used for biodiesel preparation, and identification of marine outfall, and so many other projects. She worked at CSIR NEERI Nagpur, comprised of various projects which comprised of emission inventory preparation, ambient and indoor air quality monitoring, development of action plan for air pollution control for Nagpur city, testing of indoor air quality sensors, development and testing of indoor air purifier, and menstrual waste management. She has published many papers in peer-reviewed scientific journals and so many conferences. She also won 2 Best Poster Paper Award in national and international conferences. I now would like to invite Engineer Sangeeta Goyal ma'am to deliver the lecture on air pollution. Before that, I'll just will handle the queries at the end of the session in last 15 to 20 minutes. And apart from this, I request all the attendees that we will send one link on your chat. So in your chat box, please see the link during the presentation. So fill this form, Google form for queries, and whatever your queries are there, you can ask through that particular link. So all the queries will be addressed of all the attendees at the end of the session. So I now request Sangeeta ma'am, please start your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta, for such a nice introduction. And good afternoon, everyone, including the faculty and the students of Medicaps University. Thank you for inviting me for this lecture on this National Pollution Control Day today. And my best wishes to everyone on this day. And why we need to share such days. One ozone layer depletion day is there. Then we celebrate Earth Day. We celebrate Environment Day. Similarly, Pollution Control Day is also celebrated. So I think it is to remind everyone that pollution control or saving the environment, preserving our environment, developing in a sustainable way is not only the responsibility of policymakers, it is also the responsibility of each and every citizen of India. So we should, we as students or researchers or academicians working in this area or any other area related to environment should always remember that everyone owes this responsibility of preserving the environment. I'll start with my lecture. Is it visible?
Yes.
So the title of the lecture is Air Pollution, Fundamentals, Sources, Risks and Management. I'm working as a principal scientist in NEERI, Nagpur. And NEERI is dealing with every kind of environmental management, environmental preservation, and other projects and activities. We are also dealing with various R&D projects in water, wastewater, soil, air, and many other areas of environment. Now, coming to air pollution, what is air pollution? Is it a price of industrialization? Is it a disease of wealth? Or is it a burning problem because of burning of fuels? So it is combined of all these. The theoretical definition of air pollution can be defined as, it is defined as the presence of any substance in the form of solids, liquids or gases in the atmosphere at a concentration high enough to produce an objectionable effect on human, animals, vegetation, materials, or it has potential to alter the natural balance of any ecosystem significantly. Remember the word significantly. Whenever there is air pollution, there will be change in the local environment. But if the change is significant, if the change is notable, then only we can call it as an air pollution problem. Now, what is the composition of natural air? Means what is the composition of any clean air? So it comprises of 78% nitrogen, 20.9% oxygen, argon is there, carbon dioxide is there. Only 4 of these gases will contribute to 99.998% in ambient air. Ambient air means the air which is surrounding us, the air which is present in the tropospheric atmosphere of the earth. And rest all other gases are in very, very, very small quantities. Now, what happens when air pollution arises or when air pollution is there? This composition of air is distorted or it is changed. Now, when we are studying for air pollution, it is very much necessary to understand the atmosphere where this air exists. So this atmosphere, as we all know, is the envelope of air surrounding Earth. It reaches to over 600 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. And it is divided into these 5 layers: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, or exosphere. So this is a picture depicting all these layers along with the altitude measured from the Earth's surface. And x-axis comprise of the temperature measured in degree Kelvin. As you will see in this curve, in the troposphere and some areas of stratosphere and mesosphere, the temperature goes on decreasing as we go on increasing the altitude. The stratosphere layer, this is the stratosphere which holds 19% of atmospheric gases, and it has very less water vapor. Then stratosphere also consists of the ozone layer, which protects Earth from the UV radiation of sun. And troposphere is the layer wherein all the atmospheric phenomenon takes place. That is blowing of winds, then low pressure, high pressure zones. The weather conditions or local weather happens in troposphere. Now, why this understanding is necessary? Why this the temperature gradient and these layers? Why this is necessary with respect to air pollution point of view? So there is one term that is lapse rate and adiabatic lapse rate. So what is lapse rate? The rate of decrease of temperature with increase in altitude is called as the temperature lapse rate. This rate refers to a parcel of dry air as it moves upward and expands slowly to the a lower atmospheric pressure without exchange of heat, and it is called as dry adiabatic lapse rate. Theoretically, it is 9.86 degrees centigrade per kilometer. For example, we move 1 kilometer upwards in the sky, the temperature should decrease by 9.86 degrees centigrade. But if this temperature increases with height, the lapse rate is negative. Means the temperature is not decreasing with the height. On the contrary, it is increasing. So the lapse rate becomes negative, and this condition is termed as inversion. This is a typical temperature profile where you can see there is a decrease in temperature with the altitude. And this second figure tells us about the inversion temperature profile. What is happening in this second figure? When we are moving from ground to sky, or we are moving upwards, so the temperature is not decreasing, it is increasing. And again, after some distance, again this temperature has started decreasing. When this condition happens, or when this thing is there, this phenomenon is called as inversion. During this inversion, what happens is that this vertical air movement is completely stopped. Now, why it stops? Because a dense cold stratum of air, it gets covered by a lighter, warmer air at higher level. Means, for example, if the air is cold in winter months just near to the ground and it could not dissipate, and if inversion happens, then above it a lighter warm air will be there, and it will not allow this dense air to move upward. What will happen? The atmosphere will become completely stable because there will not be any movement of any gases or any dust, or no air movement will be there. If by some sources any pollutants are emitted in this layer, this dense cold layer, then these pollutants will be trapped in that layer and they will not be allowed to disperse vertically. And generally these inversions are common in the colder regions and even in warmer regions in the winter months. And when we have some narrow valleys like conditions which are surrounded by mountains or hills, so these valleys are very favorable for inversion conditions. Why? Because there will not be any horizontal air movement in these valleys. So inversion is very common in those places, and these places can become the worst situation with respect to air pollution. These are the figures which tell us about the how any air pollutant, if emitted in air, how it will disperse along with the various inversion conditions. With respect to the lapse rate, this left figure shows us the lapse rate either increasing or decreasing with the altitude. So first figure tells us about looping. See, here you can see a vertical line which is emitting certain pollutants. You could consider this line as a stack of any industry which is emitting certain quantity of pollutants. And if this kind of temperature profile is there, these pollutants will follow a looping pattern. And what will happen? They will reach to exact ground level at certain distance from this stack. because of this temperature profile. Now the right side figure is the figure of fumigation. Fumigation means the temperature is decreasing at certain altitude, but then all of a sudden the temperature has started increasing. So there is an inversion in this place, but the inversion is at a higher altitude from the ground. So what is happening? If the pollutants are discharged below this inversion layer, then whatever pollutants are emitted in that area, they will be trapped below the layer. They will not be allowed to move upward. Why? Because below this line, the air is cold and dense. It will not allow to dissipate the pollutants vertically. So whatever pollutants are emitted from this industrial stack, they will get accumulated within the nearby area. They will also reach to the ground level. Now, third figure is about coning. In coning, the pollutants will flow in a conical direction. So there is a possibility if wind movement is very good, there is a possibility that they can get very good dispersion. But if wind movement is not there, then after a certain distance, coning will also reach these pollutants to the ground level. Then lofting is one condition where you can see from ground level the temperature is increasing with the increase in altitude, and after that it is getting decreased. So inversion is there, but inversion is near to the ground, and in this inversion condition, if this stack is emitting the pollutants above the inversion layer, then these pollutants will not be allowed to enter in this near inversion zone. So this is the very good situation with respect to air pollution dispersion. This inversion layer will protect the ground level population or materials from getting exposed to this pollution, because these pollutants will be at a certain height from the ground level and they will never come to the ground. Then similarly, fanning condition is there where the pollutants will be dispersed in a fan way. And then next is trapping. Trapping is the condition where two inversions takes place at one particular point at the same time. There is one inversion at the ground level. See, there is increase in temperature up to certain height. Then again temperature is decreasing up to certain altitude, and then again second inversion is taking place. So again the temperature has started increasing with altitude. So when the pollutants are emitted in two layers of this inversion, so though that pollution will have a specific pathway. It will not reach to the ground, nor it will go to the upper higher atmosphere or stratosphere. It will travel in a certain path. In pictures, you can see this is a very clear picture. What are the dangerous and favorable plumes with respect to the air inversion conditions? So this first figure tells of the fumigating plume. You can see whatever pollutants are emitted from this stack, they are moving in a fumigating pattern. So all of a sudden, just near to this factory, these pollutants are getting reached to the ground. And then whatever population who is staying here, they will be exposed to these very high levels of concentrations. Again, whatever materials are there, they will be also exposed to very high concentration of pollutants. Whereas the right figures tells you about the one inversion condition where the inversion has taken place near to ground and the air pollutants are emitted above just the inversion layer. So this is a lofting plume, and this plume is not allowing the pollutants to enter to the ground level. So this is a very favorable plume condition wherein any industry will like to have a release of these pollutants at such a condition so that these pollutants are not directly reaching to the ground as soon as they are emitted from the stack. Now, can air pollution be a disaster? So yes, air pollution can become a very big disaster, and this has happened in history. So I'll tell you about one historical air pollution disaster phenomenon or tragedy. It happened in London. The duration was December 5 to December 9 in the year 1952. It is also called as Great Smog of London. What happened during this time is that a very high pressure area was created an
Ma'am, voice is not audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this fog has accumulated various gaseous pollutants as well as various dust particles, and then it became a very dangerous thing, that is black fog. Means it is also called as a smog. Smog means smoke plus fog. Now, along with dust particles in this area, the SO2 levels, that is sulfur dioxide levels in the atmosphere, were also very high. This white fog became black fog gradually as the dust particles gone on increasing and accumulating on the fog particles. Then this high pressure area really got stationary. There is no movement of air, there is no wind speed. The buildup of pollutants combined with fog resulted in zero visibility. You can see in these pictures, the average SO2 concentration was about 6 times the usual level, and 20% of the aerosols were comprised of acid sulfates, and it was sulfuric acid. By December 6, that is just 1 or 2 days, the pollutants were sufficiently concentrated to cause deaths. Huge number of people were hospitalized because of lung or heart-related diseases, and this killer smog caused more than 4,000 deaths in London. Just imagine, it was just like our pandemic, whatever we saw in COVID situation. Within few days, 4,000 deaths happened because of just one air pollution problem. And most of the people who died were old and those with histories of asthma, bronchitis, or other heart and lung related diseases. Now, similar such disasters were also happened in Meuse Valley, Belgium. It happened in December 1930. In Donora, USA also. In Donora, it was the sulfuric acid along with nitrogen dioxide and fluorine gas. Fluorine is also highly oxidative gas, and it can oxidize your lungs tissues. And similar disasters happened in Los Angeles, New York, and Mexico, Tokyo also. Now, why we call air pollution as a burning problem? What does global and Indian scenario tells us? Now, who estimates that? Who is World Health Organization? It estimates that every year 8 million people die prematurely because of lung cancer, cardiovascular, and respiratory diseases due to outdoor air pollution. Approximately 150,000 of these deaths are estimated to occur in South Asia alone. Means our countries are having very big disease and death burden because of air pollution. And around 100 and 150 million people in the globe have asthma, and this figure is every day increasing. In our country, we have 15 to 20 million asthmatics, and many more will come in the coming years. And various studies have indicated that air pollution can damage the lungs of children even before their birth. Now, air pollution, India status. Actually, we should be very sad. Means it is really not a good situation with respect to Indian air quality. We have various cities which are most polluted, and at majority of the times in the world's most 10 polluted cities, either we have 7 or 8 cities in India which are highly polluted. For example, you can see this chart where we have highest polluted cities noted as Gurugram, Ghaziabad, Faisalabad, and all these. And the proportion of population which are using solid fuels in India is very high, that is 55%. It was 2017 figure. And this number was very high in the states of Bihar, Jharkhand, and Odisha. In these states, the population which is using solid fuels is 75%. And in India, 1.24 million deaths were there in 2017. And these deaths were 12.5% of the total deaths, and these were attributed just to air pollution. And along with ambient air pollution, household air pollution was also the culprit for these deaths. You can see in the left side, this is the estimated PM 2.5 exposure. PM is particulate matter. Particulate matter is nothing but dust. And 2.5 is the particle which is having its diameter 2.5 micron and less than that. So this is the PM 2.5 exposure map by country, and it was 2018. We can see India falls in the unhealthy country category, and it is a very worst situation for all of us. And you can see this picture that women are receiving treatment for their respiratory issues. And every day around 93% of world's children under the age of 15 breathe air that is really polluted. And this polluted air puts their health and development at serious risk. And tragically, many of these children die also. In 2016, 6 lakhs children died from acute lower respiratory infections which were caused by polluted air. These are some of the pictures. You can see how this bus is emitting. Delhi situation, everybody knows, high accumulation of pollutants in the winter months. And similar cases are happening with other cities also. Now this map also tells us the PM 2.5 levels. You can see the red areas, the orange areas, yellow and green areas. In the whole country, we can find very less green areas are there, which are having very good air quality. Very less area in our country is having good air quality. Rest all the areas having really, really very worst air quality. These are various news. Delhi is the world's most polluted city. Air pollution, the 5th largest killer in India. Delhi mein nikla, Delhi ka Diwali mein nikla, Delhi ka Diwala, such news are very frequent. Now coming to the fundamentals, that is classification of air pollutants, how we classify these air pollutants, how you will see these air pollutants. So there are basically 3 categories, that is primary, secondary and toxic or hazardous air pollutants. So what are primary air pollutants? So primary air pollutants are those which are emitted directly into the atmosphere from any source. It could be industry, it could be vehicle, or it could be some area source. Whereas secondary air pollutants are those air pollutants which are formed because of some chemical or physical interaction of 2 or more of these primary air pollutants. Then there is 3rd category, that is toxic or hazardous air pollutants, under which some typical group of air pollutants come, which have very toxic effect on human health or plant health or materials also. Now we have an apex body which regulates this pollution problem, and the name of the body is Central Pollution Control Board. Now this Central Pollution Control Board has stipulated national ambient air quality standards, which are stipulated for 24 hours or annual standard, which are there for industrial as well as residential area. This yellow table, you can see there are 12 air pollutants, and these standards are there for 24 hours duration for the residential area. What are hazardous air pollutants? So hazardous air pollutants are either volatile organic compounds or semi-volatile organic compounds like benzene, which is emitted from our vehicles, toluene, xylene, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Then second category is persistent organic pollutants. Persistent means they have very long life in atmosphere. They will stay for various years in the atmosphere and will cause damaging effects on many things. So the persistent organic pollutants include polychlorinated biphenyls, then dioxins are there, furans are there, pesticides are there. Dioxin and furans is a very typical group of chemicals which are observed in all the environments. They are present in water also, they are present in air also. So dioxins, the typical name of dioxins is PCDD, that is polychlorinated dibenzodioxin, and furans name is PCDF, that is polychlorinated dibenzofurans. These are the chemicals which are emitted when chlorinated or fluorinated or halogenated plastics are burned in ambient air at a temperature less than 900 degrees centigrade. So whenever some PVC pipe is there or some electrical wiring or electrical wires are burnt below 900 degrees centigrade, these dangerous chemicals are released into the ambient air. Then third category is carbonyls. In that aldehydes and ketones come. Then metals are also there. Metals include lead, mercury, arsenic, nickel, cadmium, and all these come in hazardous air pollutants category. US EPA, that is the United States Environmental Protection Agency, has currently listed approximately 189 substances as hazardous air pollutants. And from where these pollutants come into the atmosphere? So there are various sources. Those could be broadly classified into first category is the natural sources, which include some volcanoes, forest fires, biogenic sources, and other emissions from soil, water, or marshy lands. And the second category is anthropogenic sources. So anthropogenic sources include industrial emissions, urban emissions, traffic emissions. So urban emissions include the hotels, restaurants, crematoria, open waste burning, construction and demolition activities, and various others. So whatever may be the sources which are emitting various kinds of pollutants in the atmosphere, the receptors, that is human beings, animals, will always be at risk. There is no escape. Why? Because whenever you are breathing air near to you, whatever air is there, whichever quality of that air is there, you will have to breathe in. You cannot stop breathing. You will have to breathe. If the air is polluted, you will have to breathe the polluted air. Except you can use some mask. For example, like in COVID, we are using masks. So at least these masks are protecting us from the dust. At least one protection from dust is there. But regarding gases, you don't have those masks except you purchase the specific gas protection mask. Otherwise, whatever air is there near to you, you will have to breathe that air. So it is very much necessary that everyone tries to keep the air surrounding you clean. Whatever doable things are there, you should try to do that. I'll come to those measures also. Now, these are some of the sources of these air pollutants in details. For example, the pollutant criteria pollutant is sulfur dioxide. Natural source is volcanoes or hot springs. From there it is emitted, and anthropogenic sources are obviously first source is the power plant, which burns huge quantities of coal, that is a fossil fuel. Then various sulfuric acid manufacturing units, then zinc, copper smelting, and various other industrial activities lead to sulfur dioxide emissions. Further, whenever we are burning petrol or diesel in our cars or two-wheelers or buses, at that time also we are emitting significant quantities of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, along with carbon monoxide and dust also. So in short, you can see all these sources. Lightning, aerobic activity leads to nitrogen dioxide emissions, and NO2 is also released from combustion activities, vehicles, nitric acid manufacturing industries. Then PM10 and PM2.5. So PM is the particulate matter. 10 means any dust particle which is having its size as 10 micron or less than that. And PM2.5 is a 2.5 micron and less than that. So they are having their natural sources as dust, volcanoes, dust storms, forest and grassland fires. Dust storm is one particular phenomenon which happens especially in the Arabian countries where very dry weather is there. So there generally dust storm is there. I think in Salman Khan's one movie that dust storm was shown. And then those dust storms travel to very huge distances. Sometimes they travel to India also. We have seen such dust storms in Rajasthan, part of Gujarat, and northern part of India. And at that time, the pollutant levels reach very high values, and visibility is also reduced during that duration. Now, ozone is also identified by CPCB as a secondary as a criteria pollutant. Ozone is basically a secondary pollutant which is formed because of the action of nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds, only in the form of presence of sunlight. Then carbon monoxide is there. Then ammonia, various agricultural processes emit ammonia. Then we have anthropogenic sources also, for example, air conditioning, food industries and all that. Benzene. Benzene is one of the most hazardous air pollutants. It doesn't have any natural origin. Benzene is emitted from petrol and industrial solvents, automobiles and all that. And all these other pollutants are there. Now, for all the criteria pollutants except ozone, greater than 75% of the emissions originates only from the combustion activity. What is combustion? So complete combustion is defined as the conversion of the carbon in the fuel to CO2 and complete conversion of hydrogen in the fuel to water. If this happens, then only CO2, water and nitrogen and heat would be emitted in the atmosphere. But what happens is that combustion is not always complete. There are various factors, that is lack of right air to fuel ratio, then right temperature is not there, turbulence is not there, and right time is not given to the combustion activity. So it leads to the air pollution problem. Now, coming to the laws related to air pollution in India. So, there was a first law on air pollution in India. It was the Bengal Smoke Nuisance Act, 1905. This right side stand image shows the image of that act. No, it is Bombay Act, and the first one was Bengal Smoke Nuisance Act. For Bengal Act, I could not get the image. So the main motive of this act was to prevent air pollution in Kolkata and protect Victoria Memorial from damaging. This act was framed for the abatement of nuisances arising from the smoke of furnaces or fireplaces in the towns and suburbs of Kolkata and Howrah and other areas of Bengal. It was the first law in India for protecting any kind of law for protecting nature in India. Now, after that, this Bombay Act, that is Bombay Smoke Nuisances Act, 1912, it came in the year 1912. These act for the abatement of nuisance arising from the smoke of furnaces in the Greater Bombay region. See, Bombay region was the region which was highly industrialized during British rule, and there were many furnaces which were using either coal or furnace oil for various industrial activities, and they used to emit huge emissions in this area. It was a province, it was a Bombay province, and a huge quantity of pollution was there. So this law was there. Now, the origin of complete environmental awareness or policies was the Stockholm Conference, which was the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. This was the first conference in the world where 113 countries met and discussed issues like global warming and chlorofluorocarbons for the first time. This conference marked a turning point in the development of international environmental policies. Till then, no stringent policies were there around the globe or around the world. After the conference, United Nations Environment Program, that is UNEP, was set up, which is responsible for running the environment-related activities worldwide. This Stockholm Conference suggested that developing countries must direct their efforts towards balancing their population growth. Now, what happened after this conference? What were the effects of Stockholm Conference in India? The problems related to environment received government's attention for the first time in India's fourth 5-year plan, which was from 1969 to 74. The 42nd Amendment of the Constitution of India in 1976 introduced significant provisions in the Constitution relating to the environment protection. Till that time, the Constitution was not having any scope for this. Following the Stockholm Conference, to identify and investigate the problems of preserving or improving the human environment in the country, as well as to propose a solution for environmental problems, one National Committee on Environmental Planning and Coordination, that is NCEPC, was set up in 1972 under the Union Department of Science and Technology. NCEPC, in its existence of 8 years, provided a major thrust in environmental planning, approval of various projects, human settlement in planning, surveys of wetlands, and spreading awareness about environmental research, environmental academics. After that, Central Pollution Control Board was set up on 22nd September 1974 to oversee the implementation of provisions in the Act. So later in 1981, the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act came, which was then amended in 1987. The Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Rules, they were also established in 1982. Then Air Prevention and Control of Pollution for Union Territories Rules, 1983, and some amendment rules were also there. Now we have in India the Air Act 1981. What does it say? So it has 54 sections, which it was enacted by the Parliament to implement the decision taken at the United Nations Stockholm Conference in 1972. Then the main objectives of this act was to provide for the prevention, control, and abatement of air pollution. Second is to provide for the establishment of central and state pollution control boards, and to lay down standards to maintain the quality of air. After that, the environmental governance in India, how does it takes place? So we have a Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, that is MOEFCC. The Department of Environment and Forest and Wildlife in the Ministry of Environment and Forest came with effect from September 25, 1985. This department plays a role of a watchdog and serves as a nodal agency in the administrative structure of the government of planning, promotion and coordination of environmental and forestry programs. Then MOEF was renamed to the current title, that is MOEFCC, in May 2014. Although tackling climate change was already a responsibility of the ministry, but in 2014 that it was observed that since the department is also dealing with climate change problem, so this name was changed. Now, where these laws are used, or what these laws, how these laws helped us for control of pollution. So you can see the first news that Vedanta gets shut plant notice by the Odisha Pollution Control Board. Vedanta Aluminium is a very huge industry in Sambalpur, Jharsuguda region. It is an aluminium smelter which is having very big units located in Jharsuguda. And because they were not complying to the pollution standards, so Odisha Pollution Control Board, that is OSPCB, asked the plant to shut down. Then similar such news are there in for Maharashtra. MPCB notices 30 coal depots for violating environment norms. Then one news from Pune is there in Hindustan Times, that is MPCB's Pune division shuts down 43 industries. Then 834 factories in Maharashtra were shut down in 2 years for causing pollution. So these laws are very well deployed by the pollution control boards for preventing the air pollution. Now, how these national ambient air qualities are developed, or why they are developed, why we need any standards either for water or for air or for some noise like this. So standards are prerequisite for developing program for effective management of ambient air quality and to reduce the damaging effects of air pollution. What are the objectives of these standards? Why we need these standards? कि अपने यहाँ पे dust जो है PM10 है 100 से ऊपर नहीं जाना चाहिए. PM2.5 जो है जो बहुत small particles है, those should not go above 60. Why we need these standards? So these standards indicate the levels of air quality necessary with an adequate margin of safety to protect the public health, vegetation, and property. The standards also assist in establishing priorities for abatement and control of pollutant level. If somebody is doing monitoring, then you will came to know that which pollutants are exceeding the standards and which are not. Then you can establish the priority that to which pollutant I should prioritize my control measures, to which sources I should target for controlling the pollution. Then these standards also provide one uniform yardstick for assessing air quality at the national and international level. They also indicate the need and extent of monitoring program. कि हम लोगों को और ज़्यादा monitoring stations चाहिए. If the area is highly polluted and you have only one station, you cannot cover larger distances, then decisions can be taken that we need more monitoring stations in these areas because the air quality is varying with respect to the distance like that. So these standards were adopted for the first time by CPCB in November 11, 1982. Then they were revised in 1994, and again third revision came in November 2009. And earlier only 4 parameters were there, only 4 pollutants were there for these standards. But from 2009, we have 12 air pollutants as the criteria air pollutants identified in India by CPCB. So this is the table, which is the source is CPCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board. At present, we have these standards as our national ambient air quality standards, wherein we have some gaseous pollutants, that is sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide. We have particulate matter, that is dust, PM10, PM2.5. We also have ozone, then lead, carbon monoxide, ammonia, benzene, benzoalphabyrene, arsenic, and nickel. Now, what happens when these air pollutants are emitted in air? So, they have various kinds of damaging effects on our health. See, this central figure tells us about human respiratory system. You can see here that this pipe is there, that is trachea. Then you have bronchial tubes. What happens is that whenever any individual is exposed to particles in 1 to 10 micron range, they will be collected in the middle part of the respiratory system, and gradually it will be removed out of your system. Particles more than 10 micron will be trapped in your nasal cavity only. They will not enter deep into your lungs. And whenever you will sneeze, this particle will get out of your system. But when the particles are less than 2.5 micron or less than 1 micron, these particles will travel to the smallest unit of your lung, that is alveolus. You can see very small air sacs are there. COVID situation has given us very good understanding of our lungs and everything. So these particles will enter to these sacs, and then they will start damaging these alveoli, and they will lead to various problems. Similarly, along with dust, if you have gaseous pollutants like ozone, nitrogen dioxide, or sulfur dioxide, or carbon monoxide, then what will happen? These all gases will also travel to the smallest unit of your lung. The lungs epithelial lining, or the cell lining, it will be moist. When these gases will reach there, they will form acids. For example, NO2 will form nitric acid, SO2 will form sulfuric acid. Then ozone is there. Ozone is a very strong oxidizing agent, and it has very big damaging property on any cell wall. So all these gases will slowly damage the lining of your smallest part of your lung, that alveolus, and slowly your lungs functioning will be hampered. Then apart from these dust and gases, benzene, lead, arsenic, this will also have varying effect on your system. For example, benzene, which is emitted from the vehicles, will lead to drowsiness, dizziness, headache, everything. Then lead is there. Lead can harm your kidneys, liver, and it can lead to nervous system disorders also. Then if that dust particles contain some arsenic, if arsenic is there, then the person who is continuously exposed to that arsenic laden dust, then he is very susceptible for lung cancer. Lung cancer cases were very high in some mining population, and the people who are working in some industry which are dealing with arsenic related raw materials or pollutants in that area. Benzoalpha-pyrene, this is again identified as a hazardous air pollutant. It is also carcinogenic. Now you can see this picture. What happens is that a moderately active adult inhales about 20 meter cube of air daily. The respiratory tract itself is protected by various mechanisms. Our nose cleans many of the dust particles and pollen grains and all that. Then we have epithelial lining. It is also having some traps to remove. And however, smaller particles that our system cannot remove. Then you can see this picture. These pictures depict us the lungs exposed to tobacco and indoor air pollution. So you can see the quality of lung. Ideally, it should look pinkish, reddish, bright in color. But you can see dark spots are there on these lungs. The chronic exposure with these to these air pollutants leads to chronic lung diseases. Then it can also lead to mild pulmonary fibrosis, airway obstruction, and asthma exacerbation and frequent clinic visits. This figure tells you about the respiratory status of children in Delhi. There was one very good study which was carried out by Confederation of NGOs of Rural India, that is CNRI. What they have done is that they have studied the alveolar macrophages in sputum. Sputum means saliva, जो हम थूकते हैं उसको sputum बोल सकते हैं आप. So, and what is macrophage? So macrophage is a large phagocytic cell found in the stationary form in the tissues or as a mobile white blood cell, especially at sites of infection. It is a type of a protective mechanism of our body which protects us. And macrophages are important cells of our immune system that are formed only in response to some infection or some accumulating damage. So you can see these pictures A, B, C, D. What is A figure tells us? This is a rural child macrophage which was situated in a controlled area which was not having any significant amount of air pollution. You can see very little macrophages are there. Whereas this is the B side, figure which tells us about higher quantity of macrophages. These were found in the child who was staying in urban area. However, that urban area was also in the control conditions. When the air quality was relatively clean. No sources were there for air pollution, but still that child had so many number of macrophages in his sputum. And C and D are the macrophage image of the children which were exposed to vehicular pollution. So just imagine if daily we are getting exposed, forget about industrial pollution or forget about any other pollution, just vehicular pollution. If daily you are getting exposed to this vehicular emission, what happens to your lungs? Just imagine. These all black spots are eye-opening. We can see how much damage could be causing every day. Now, along with human health, this air pollution can also lead to photochemical smog. which was originally referred to heavy layers of smoke or fog. Originally, it was only told for the London smog, but now it was referred to any air pollution caused by industries, motor vehicles. It is a very dangerous form of smog. It is produced by photochemical reactions between hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides only in the form of sunlight. Then what happens when these gases, that SO2, NO2, or other oxides of sulfur and nitrogen are emitted in the air? What happens whenever there is a raining or whenever sufficient moisture is there? The small water droplets will absorb these gases. They will turn into acids, and then this acid rain will come to earth, and it is very damaging for plant leaves, materials, as well as human beings also. So now how this air pollutant affects plants? So what happens is that plants have one good system for exchange of gases. It is called as a stomata. Stomata are present just in the lower portion of the leaf. What happens is that whenever sunlight is there, this stomata will be widely opened to allow the inflow of carbon dioxide in the plant tissue so that photosynthesis can take place. But what happens whenever air pollution is there, along with CO2, these gases, that is sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ozone, carbon monoxide, all these will also enter to the plant leaf. And what they will do, again, they will have tendency to form some acids, or they will have tendency to damage the cell walls of the plant, and ultimately it will lead to the bleaching of leaves. You can see the picture here. It will lead to the suppressed growth of plants. It will lead to necrosis or in interveinal areas or skeletonized leaf. For example, you can see the skeleton of the leaf. You will not see the green portion of the leaf. So in such a way, it affects plants also. See, if you will imagine that instead of normal plants, if there is a farm which is producing either wheat or rice or lentils is there, and one big huge farm is there, and good crop is about to come, and at that time if that farm is exposed to some of the air pollutants, then what will happen to that farm, or what will happen to that produce? The yield will be significantly reduced because the plant will not grow as it was supposed to grow, and then you cannot get whatever you were supposed to get, whatever wheat, rice, or anything, or even vegetables. So you will not get whatever expected yield was there, that will be damaged. Then these air pollution will also affect farm animals. They will also have various health effects, and it also affects materials or property. For example, monuments, then industrial establishment, premises, everything will be damaged. The effect of air pollution on monuments, the best example is Taj Mahal, how it is damaged with the surrounding air pollution. You can see this right side image tells us about this scanning electron microscope image of this Taj Mahal surface area, where you can see how the marble surface is attacked by these various gaseous and dust pollutants, and how it is getting discolorated. From last 300 to 400 years, we have this very good iconic monument in India, and how air pollution has damaged that monument. You can find the various reports on this. But after in 1996 and after that, there was a big concern regarding this. So the Archaeological Survey of India has contacted NEERI Nagpur to carry out the survey for discoloration of Taj Mahal. And then we have done the systematic monitoring of that area, then monitoring of the Taj Mahal surface material also, how it is reacting to the pollutants. And after that, very stringent measures were taken place. Various industries were shut down, in not only just near to Taj area, but very huge radius near to Taj is not allowed to do any industrial activity. In fact, the zone which is very near to Taj Mahal was not allowed to operate even diesel-driven vehicles also. So many such suggestions were made, and after that, the discoloration of Taj Mahal has slowed down. Now coming to the measurement, how you will measure? You know that pollution is there, you know that so many parameters are there, you know that they are damaging us. How you will measure? Why we need to measure? So there are legal requirements. CPCB tells us, or MPCB, that is MPCB is Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. In Indore, you have Madhya Pradesh Pollution Control Board. So you have legal requirements. Then certain industries install some air pollution control devices. So how you will evaluate those devices, whether that device is working properly or not. So for that, we need measurements. What are the type of measurements? So there are basically two types of measurement. One is ambient measurement. We call it as ambient monitoring. And second is source measurement or source testing. The principle of any sampling. During measurement, what we do, we take a sample of that air. For example, whatever area of concern is there, you will go, you will install your samplers, and you will take some sample of air to know what is the status of air pollutants in that particular area. So for that, you will need certain gadgets. So this is a National Air Quality Monitoring. This is the program which is conducted by CPCB. Various agencies are involved in this, and at present more than 793 locations are being monitored for our air quality, and these locations are present in 29 states and 6 union territories. In Maharashtra, we have 27 cities or towns wherein this monitoring is regularly carried out. And for this monitoring or measurement purpose, we need these samplers. These are the air quality samplers which are used for monitoring various parameters. The above figures are showing you the respirable dust sampler, which we use for the monitoring of PM10. Here in this right side, you can see this is a gaseous attachment. We attach this device to the sampler, and it will be used for the monitoring of gaseous air pollutants like SO2, NO2, and ammonia. In the lower side of the slide, you will find this. This is fine particulate sampler, which is able to monitor PM2.5, PM1 also. Then you can see after collecting this sample, the samples are collected basically on either dust samples will be collected on filter paper, and the gaseous samples will be collected in the absorbing solutions. Means we need some chemical and then we need to draw a certain volume of air through that, so that we can take the sample of gaseous air pollutants. Just like in the home, everyone might have seen, whenever your mummy is preparing rotis or chapatis, she is taking that wheat flour and she is sieving that wheat flour for any impurity or like that. So that sieve, you can see, just like that sieve, but in a smaller size, we keep filter papers in these samplers. Whatever air is sucked from these inlets, it will be allowed to pass through that filter paper. Whatever dust is there, the dust will be trapped above that filter paper, and the clean air will pass from the lower side. And this method is called as the gravimetric method, and various types of filter papers are used. We can use glass fiber filters, we can use Teflon filters, quartz filters were also used. And the recommended flow rate is 16.67 liters per minute for the air to blow from that sampler. And the particles which are remained on the filter papers will be measured for their weight. What we'll do that before the sampling, we'll take the initial weight of the filter, which will give us the blank weight. And after sampling, we'll take the final weight of the filter, and we'll know how much dust is collected on that filter paper. So these are the details of monitoring system. We need one HVS filter. HVS is high volume sampler. Then there is a hopper with base plate, filter holder, and all these are the flow. We need one flow recorder so that we can record how much air is passed from that filter paper, so that we can estimate in how much meter cube of air this dust was present. For gaseous pollutants, see, this is the unit, and this is the fine dust sampler, which is used for PM 2.5 monitoring. Right side one is the fine dust sampler, and left side is the thermoelectrically cooled gaseous sampling attachment. Then we need all these systems also: temperature, pressure recorder, calibration system for flow rate measurement. Calibration is a very important activity in monitoring. You need to calibrate your devices. Then you need filter conditioning chamber, analytical balance. You will need one light source, numbering device if you have device, or otherwise you can number with a marker. Then you need glass fiber or other filter papers. Then there are various steps in the filter papers. Then how you will determine the concentration. So first, what you will do, whatever the volume of air sampled at standard temperature conditions, standard temperature pressure conditions are there, you will calculate that from this equation, where you will need the real-time pressure and real-time temperature value of the area. Then in the bottom, how you will calculate this PM 2.5 or PM 10 concentration. So final weight of the filter after the dust collected minus the initial weight into 10 to the power 6. For example, if W is noted in gram, then you will multiply with 10 to the power 6 and divide it by VT. What is VT? VT is the total volume of air sampled. In जितनी हवा उसमें से pass हुई है वो, that is in meter cube, and whatever weight of dust is collected on the filter paper, that is on the top. So this value, this equation will lead you to the microgram of PM10 or PM 2.5 per meter cube of air. Now, apart from these methods, there are some automatic analyzers also. You can see this image is for the green spectrometer. It is a laser-based technique. It is used for very varying range of particles. This is again another technique for automatic analyzer, that is dust track aerosol monitor. It will also monitor the dust in various particle fractions. Now, recently in 2018, CPCB or basically MOEFCC has launched one program, that is National Clean Air Program, that is NCAP. What happened in that, at that time in 2018, there were 102 cities in India which were not meeting the CPCB air quality standards, which had very bad air quality. And so this program was launched. Now the number of cities have increased, and goal of this program was to meet the prescribed annual average ambient air quality standards at all these locations. And the aim of this program again is to have a feasible management plan, that how you will control the pollution in these cities. So CSIR NEERI is looking after 17 non-attainment cities of Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, we have so many cities which are non-attainment. For this, emission inventory and source apportionment studies of 10 cities. The study is already completed. Action plans were prepared based on the study, and now they are being implemented. These are the name of the cities. In this program, I dealt with the city Nagpur. We have prepared emission inventory and action plan for Nagpur. Whenever you are doing emission inventory, you will need to have an idea of the area of the city, then how many zones are there, what is the population, what are the polluting sources are there, what was the prevalent air quality of that city. So this was the prevalent air quality of Nagpur, where you can see that majority of the times, majority of the years, with respect to PM10, that is dust, the city was exceeding the CPCB standard. This red line is the CPCB standard, and majority of the places, the Nagpur city had a very big dust problem. These are the images of, again, specific 2017-2016 years for PM10 and 2.5. You can see particular pattern. You can see Here in June, July, August, September, very good air quality is there. Why? Because since rain is there, rain has a very good scavenging effect on air pollution. So whatever dust is there, it will lead to separation of dust, cleaning of that dust. So you will have very good air quality in this rainy season. And then again in October, November, December, January, you have worst air quality. This situation will be common to each and every city of India or each and every place of India. Then how you will prepare the emission inventory? So you will classify the sources. For example, industrial sources, large scale, medium scale, small scale industries. Then you will have area sources, cooking fuel, solid waste burning, road dust. Then crematoria. Crematoria is again a big emission source where we are burning bodies. For burning one dead body, approximately 300 kilogram of wood is required. So just imagine that much kg of wood and 70 to 80 kg of that body weight is getting burnt, which will lead to very high emissions. Then you have construction demolition activities also and line sources. This was the sector-wise industrial PM2.5 emission distribution in Nagpur. You can see steel sector is a dominating sector here. Then in Nagpur city has 3465 kilometer of road network, and people prefer to use personal vehicles than public transport. And it is observed that on an average 59,000 new vehicles are registered every year in Nagpur. So just imagine how much vehicle load is every year added to the roads. Then we did vehicle count in the city. Then what happened is that when a vehicle count was done, we have observed that 68% of the vehicles were two-wheelers, 17% were cars, jeeps, buses were only 2%. And what happened is that when the emission estimation for these vehicles was done, what we observed that even though the two-wheelers are in 68%, very huge number are there, two-wheelers are contributing only 12% to the emissions. However, buses and trucks, which are in very small number, and these are light commercial vehicles or light goods vehicle, these are the biggest emitters with respect to the vehicular pollution in the city. Maybe because of these are diesel driven vehicles. Then nowadays we are seeing various kinds of e-rickshaws, e-autos or e-cars, even e-two-wheelers are there. So what do you think, whether they are really good or bad? So introduction of e-taxis and e-rickshaws. In 2018 in Nagpur, 100 e-taxis and 65 e-rickshaws were running. And when I had tried to estimate that whether they are helping in reducing the air pollution or not, so it is estimated that they are helping for reducing the PM2.5 emissions by a rate of 0.05 kg per day. See, 0.05 kg is, because it is in kg, you can think that it is a very big, it is not a very big number. But if it is in microgram, then you can see it is a very big number. And just 100 e-taxis and just 65 e-rickshaws can save this much pollution. Then imagine if this number is increased. Or the new central government policy, that is e-buses, if it is in existence, then just imagine what will be the emission reduction taking place because of these e-vehicles. Similarly, this fuel distribution in the case of area sources, that is cooking fuel, was taken place. See, the left figure shows us the consumption pattern of various fuels. You can see LPG is consumed at various houses. 80% of the houses consume LPG, and wood is consumed by 12% houses. Whereas if you will see the emissions of air pollutant, wood is contributing to the 65% of the emission. So wood is a dirty fuel. Coal is a dirty fuel, whereas LPG is a clean fuel, not leading to much emissions. So like this, you will try to find out the various sources, like this emissions are estimated, and then you approach the management plan. So whenever you are managing any urban air quality or any air quality, first you will have to do the ambient air quality. Then you will do the emission inventory and dispersion modeling study, that how these pollutants are coming in the atmosphere, what are the major sources, point area, line sources, and how they are getting dispersed into the air. That also you will have to know. And you will do the source apportionment study, that which source is dominating, which source is not that much dominating, and everything is required. And after analysis of all these, will identify this the major problematic sources, and then you will arrive at some preventive measures as well as curative measures, which will lead to the air pollution control. Now coming to one main area, that is indoor air pollution. So indoor air pollution is also, I think I have 10 minutes. So I'll, within very short time, I'll tell you about indoor air pollution. Many of these, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, all these areas use huge amount of solid fuels for cooking, and hence they have very bad air quality. Then indoor air pollution is also attributable to various deaths in areas. See, this graph tells us the solid fuel use. This is the Census of India graph. Rural areas are still using a huge amount of firewood and crop residues, etc. What are the sources of indoor air pollution? So cooking is the first source. Then you have puja room where you burn incense sticks, dhoops, mosquito coil. You have toilets where you use various kinds of cleaning agents, and you have other sources also. So this was one of our studies wherein we have compared some incense sticks, that is agarbatti, then mosquito coil, dhoop, cigarette, and coal. We have compared the PM concentrations emitted from these sources. Then we have calculated the hazard index from these sources. And what we observed is that the hazard index was 4.42. It was estimated for adults, and 1.26 was estimated for children. And this was highest hazard index, and it was observed from incense stick. Similarly, charcoal means coal, was also leading to a very high hazard index of 2.77. And it was because of cadmium, which was present in this coal. And this was our research paper. And I have two project assistants who are working on this. So their names are Sanket Mankar and Shashank Somvanshi. And along with these two, we have done this study. And this paper is published in the Journal of Air Quality, Atmosphere and Health. Now, how indoor air pollution can become high risk? So in cold months, people use that small sigri or angithi, where they will burn coal or wood to keep the house warm. And many times what general practice is that the windows and doors are completely closed so that cold air cannot come. But what happens is that whenever you are burning this dirty fuel, that is coal, wood, or any agriculture waste, or cow dung cake, that is kanda, upla, so dozens of toxic and carcinogenic chemicals along with carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide are emitted, and incidents are happened that whole family died in Delhi and Madhya Pradesh and various other places with such kind of nighttime coal or wood burning inside their home. And because the ventilation was not there, buildup was there, and in these cases, the susceptible pollutant was considered as carbon monoxide. So whenever you are using these angithis or sigri for keeping your house warm, take extreme care that you have proper ventilation. Our best option is go for the clean ones, that is electric heaters, if you can afford it. Then you can prevent this indoor air pollution by installing the exhaust fan. Exhaust fan is very much required for cooking area, because even if you are using LPG, you will generate various emissions. So most of the ladies are daily exposed to these air pollutants. So exhaust fan is very much needed. Then you should have well ventilation. then you should try to avoid big agarbattis or dhoops or the things which cause huge amount of dust. Now there are again various ways to prevent vehicular air pollution or prevent your exposure. If possible, do not drive in congested areas. Try to avoid those areas. If you can use e-vehicles, you have options to use them. Use them. Then keep your vehicles properly maintained. If you want to refuel, means आपको petrol भरना है, diesel भरना है, and अगर possible है तो evening time में भरिए, because in the daytime fuel has a very less smoking point and evaporating temperature. So daytime evaporative emissions will be very high in the petrol pump also. So if possible, try to avoid that and try to use mass transport. And as a students, what could be your challenges for air pollution? So can you design such industries which don't have stacks? Can you think of industries which are not emitting air pollution? Then can we completely stop use of polluting fuels? Can we completely stop using coal, using wood, or using furnace oil, or using diesel? Can we solve problems with renewable sources? For example, solar power, we have problem of storage. Wind power, we have problem of locating that and converting it to grid. Can we solve these? Then can we manage urban air quality in a better way? Can we develop effective control devices or mechanisms for ambient air? And the most important of all this is, can we create effective public awareness? Because public awareness is very much required. At many places you might have seen that people are cleaning their courtyards. आंगन में झाड़ू लगाते हैं, उनके पेड़ के पत्ते या और भी जो कचरा है इकट्ठा हो गया उसको जला दो. They think that that is the best measure for tackling with that solid waste, but they are not imagining that how much quantity of air pollutants they are exposed to. And if daily they are doing this activity, then just imagine over the years what were their lungs look or what were their lungs condition would be. So generating public awareness is very much required in any case. It could be industrial pollution, it could be area sources, it could be vehicular sources. So as a students, you must think of these challenges, you must think of addressing these challenges. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, that you have addressed all the air pollution related issues in detail. And this lecture was really very, very informative and knowledgeable. And in future also for our student, I hope this will be very useful, very helpful for their research work and all. So all the aspect you have covered in a very, very nicely, you have covered all the lectures. So thank you all. So we'll do one thing, ma'am, because almost 5 o'clock is that will be there. So we'll take some of the queries, like 5 to 7 queries we'll take, and later on all rest of the queries will mail it to you on your email ID. And whenever you will get time till tomorrow or day after tomorrow, so please give a reply to the attendees. Okay. So I request Anurag sir to handle all the queries and then give a vote of thanks. I request Anurag sir to please handle the rest of some of the queries.
Good evening to all. Ma'am, here are some queries. I would like to share these, or I should read them. Ma'am, shall I share those queries?
Yes, I can see chat box here. If you can share here.
The queries on the screen.
Okay.
First query is Harshal Kultia.
Okay, I'll read it. Can change in climate like current rainfall pattern can be called as disasters due to air pollution? Yes, very much. And not only air pollution, there is one term which everybody knows, that it is because of greenhouse gases also. The gases which are leading to increase in Earth's temperature. So they are leading to the climate phenomenon.
Second one is, ma'am, how can we stop the ozone layer depletion without stopping the use of AC and refrigerators?
Yes, right. Actually, regarding ozone layer depletion, in 1986, there was one protocol, that is Montreal Protocol. Under that protocol, a majority of the countries agreed that they will not use the CFCs, or the most responsible gas was perfluorocarbons, that is PFC for this. So manufacturing of these gases was stopped since 1986. At very few places they are still manufactured, and at present these chlorinated or fluorinated hydro and fluorocarbons are not monitored. You can see, if you are going to purchase some AC or refrigerators, you will see one logo in that they are CFC free. If that logo is there, then it is very good that it will not lead to any PFCs or CFC emissions in air.
Next one,
Like,
ma'am. It's not very much clear consequences to human. It's not clear that about which pollution it regards.
okay.
Uh,
But regarding consequences to humans, yes, human health is very much affected by all the air pollutants. I would like to share one thing is that Delhi has the highest number of childhood asthma cases because of exposure to air pollution. So various consequences will be there, and few of the slides had that health risk assessment. You can see those slides. And apart from lungs, there will be cardiovascular problems. There will be problems in.
यार वहां पे ताला रखा है, उसमें से चाबी देखी आपने? अरे यार, उसी में गाड़ी की चाबी भी।
Ajit sir, please. Okay.
yes,
Sorry
ma'am.
for interruption.
Next query is from Sumit Chauhan. He has 4 queries.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. How mercury, arsenic, and other metals can cause air pollution since they are not volatile?
Okay. See, generally, whenever these pollutants are emitted into atmosphere, what happens is that, for example, mercury. Mercury is the main polluter for mercury is power plants. Whenever your coal is having certain composition of mercury, and that kind of coal is burned in the power plants or any other industry, there will be emissions of this mercury into the atmosphere. Similarly, for various other industries, for example, electronics or electrical items are there. So there also, if the raw material has that thing, if it is coal or if it is furnace oil or other raw materials which are used there, then it will definitely lead to the emissions of these into the atmosphere.
Second one, no restriction in the airplane. Why no restriction in the airplane since they emits too much pollution in the atmosphere? फिर इसके बाद है इनका कि India have too much dust compared to the Western countries. Why? And the green belt, is that true that the green belt of the city entraps the pollution in the city and promote the formation of the smog?
Okay, why there is no restriction on airplane? So you can see, you can understand that apart from our basic needs, that is food, water, and air, nowadays our transport or travel, it is also a equivalent. You can say it is not a basic need, but that is also need of human being which you cannot avoid. For example, cooking. Various small earning people or lower income groups, they use kerosene or they use coal, they use wood for cooking of their food. But since they are polluting fuel, so you cannot say them that you should stop using these fuels. because they are using it for their cooking purpose, which is their basic need. So you likewise, you cannot stop movement. You cannot stop vehicles on roads. For example, in lockdown, everything was stopped. But as a consequences, you came to know that how much economical loss each and every region has faced. So all these activities are related to the economy of the country, and these cannot be stopped. We need development, but we need development in a sustainable way. Although they are polluting, although vehicles are polluting, although aeroplanes are polluting, but the activity with respect to economic things or with respect to other personal things is very much necessary. So you cannot stop them even though they are polluting. But for your information, I would like to inform you the fuel which is used in aeroplane, it is the highest grade fuel, which is gasoline, and gasoline, that too very high grade gasoline, which is responsible for very less emissions from that aeroplane. It is used for planes. Further, these aeroplanes, when they are traveling in the troposphere, they are traveling at a very high altitude, and our breathing zone is relatively very much lower than that altitude. So directly these pollutants will not come in contact with you. Directly, which pollutants will come in contact with you? The emissions which your bike or which your two-wheeler is emitting, which some car is emitting, some bus is emitting, or if someone is burning something, you will come in contact with these pollutants. Then why Indian have too much dust compared to Western countries? Yes, we have very high dust as compared to Western countries. So various sources are there which are not prevalent in Western countries. For example, we have at various places we don't have end-to-end paving of road. For example, you will find a very good road, it is there, but at the road side there is no paving. There is only soil is there. So whenever vehicles are moving from that road, this soil will get suspended in air. So you will have air pollution problem. Then we have a mentality of using solid fuels for cooking. And because of their income status and all that, they cannot afford LPG for cooking. So they are dependent on coal, wood, or kerosene. So that is also another cause of concern, that they are getting emitted. Various pollutants are getting emitted from that solid fuel use. You cannot stop that, or you will have to do some other measures. So these various measures are there. That's why our country is having very much dust compared to Western countries. Similarly, one more thing I would like to have, why this person might have this question, because whatever you have seen, the highest polluted cities in India, you can see all the cities are located in the northern belt. Why this happens? Because whenever any cold air, for example, we have northern winds which come, for example, just like monsoon, the winds come from the southern side and they travel to the north. What happens is that when they approach north, and there you can see at the eastern side of India, you have Himalayan range. These winds will collide with those mountains. They will become cold. As soon as their temperature has decreased, they will try to settle at the ground level, and there will be inversion conditions. Inversion, which I have explained, and there will be the accumulation of pollutants. Because of this physiographical situation, the pollution is very high in the northern states. Then last question is green belt around the city entraps the pollutants in the city and promote formation of smog. Promote formation of smog is a different thing. And yes, green belt is very much necessary, and it is not necessary around the city. It should be there within the city also, not only around the city. Within the city, if green belt is there at certain intervals, these plants will really help you in reducing the air pollution. What happens is that dust gets trapped on the leaves of the pollutants, and gases enter into the plant body by stomata. So they will be a very good sink for air pollution. Secondly, they will increase the oxygen level in that particular area. So it is very good, not only in the city. You can think of starting plantation from your home only. start to plant trees at your home. So there only you can be able to reduce the air pollution. And promote formation smog is a different thing. It is not related to green belt. Smog, I have explained you that it is a combination of fog plus smoke. Plants will not promote the formation of smog.
Yes, Sumit, you
I
have
hope
raised-
it's clear to now.
Yes, Sumit, you have raised your hand earlier. Is there any question from you? Sumit Chauhan.
Hello.
No, sir.
Okay. All doubts of yours are clear? Okay. On behalf of Medicaps University Civil Engineering Department, I, Anurag Tripathi, would like to thank and express my gratitude to our chief guest, Mrs. Sangeeta Ghatge Goyal ma'am, to take out time from her very busy schedule to grace the event and for such a knowledgeful session. I would also like to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Sir, and the management of the university to avail us such a wonderful amenities. Those have motivated us to organize this event. And I would also like to thank the respected faculties of the Civil Engineering Department and the research scholars and also the technical staff of the university, without which this could not get its ultimate success. And at last, but not the least, I would also like to thank the attendees of the sessions, without which this webinar could not achieve its ultimate success. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sangeeta ma'am. Okay, है ना? Thank you.